There's no doubt that eyes are one of the most crucial parts of the human sensory system. But how do these complex structures work? The eye is a very complicated organ that contains 6 main parts: the pupil, iris, cornea, lens, retina, and optic nerve. These are all integral structures of the eye. These structures are very precise and fragile, and any slight alterations to them can create variations in vision from one person to another. Light travels at different wavelengths. The longer the wavelength, the redder the color is. Shorter wavelengths, on the other hand, appear as bluer colors. The scale, measured in nanometers, ranges from 350 nanometers on the blue end to 750 nanometers on the red end of the scale. This scale allows colors to be measured empirically, allowing them to be assigned an exact numerical value. The eyes, on the other hand, are not empirical. The fact is, everyone perceives color differently, even if only very slightly. The sensitivity to certain colors is determined by the cones in your eyes. Each cone corresponds to a color, and you have 3 of them. But in some cases, they overlap. This is where color blindness comes in. Only about 8.5% of the world population is colorblind, or 8% of men and 0.5% of women. Yet, almost everyone seems to have heard of it. But what is color blindness? A common misconception is that people with color blindness cannot see colors at all. Most forms of color blindness are actually the inability to distinguish differences in colors due to overlapping photopigments in the eye. The best way to show this is to provide an example. I've set up these 3 objects on the grass to give you an idea of what it looks like to have color vision deficiency. The most common forms of color blindness are proton and deuton, which are red-green based. Proton can range from slight, with just very small effects, to severe, with red viewed as totally black and yellow and orange viewed as green. Deuton can also be mild or extreme, one end with only a small discrepancy in color differentiation and the other end with greens as beige and reds as yellow. While rare, triton is equally common between both genders. People with triton have trouble differentiating blue and yellow, or may not have the ability to see either of these colors at all. Monochromacy is the rarest of all forms of color blindness. People who have this are incapable of seeing color. It comes in 2 varieties, cone monochromacy and achromatopsia. So can color blindness be corrected? Researchers from the National Institute of Health think so. They've been using gene therapy to correct color blindness in monkeys, as seen in this NPR interview.
Now some encouraging news for the more than 10 million Americans who are colorblind. A biotech company and a university today announced an agreement to develop the first treatment for the genetic disorder. NPR's John Hamilton reports.
Today's announcement comes from Avalanche Biotechnologies in Menlo Park and the University of Washington in Seattle. The agreement has its roots in a scientific breakthrough that occurred 6 years ago. That's when 2 vision researchers at the University of Washington used gene therapy to cure a form of colorblindness in squirrel monkeys. One of those researchers is Jay Knights. He says the implication was pretty obvious.
This opened the possibility of ultimately getting this to cure colorblindness in humans.
The other researcher is Maureen Knights, Jay's wife.
We've spent our entire careers writing NIH grants where we say our goal is to improve human health.
Curing colorblindness involves delivering new genes to cells in the retina that respond to color. That's what Jay and Maureen Knights did to cure the squirrel monkeys 6 years ago.
The researchers were able to correct the vision of the monkeys, which means that the gene therapy worked. By adding an extra cone, the researchers were able to restore color vision to the squirrel monkeys. With all 3 cones, they can now perceive the differences between these 3 main colors. But what does it really all mean? It means that we all see colors differently. The way I see this image is different than the way you see it, and the person sitting next to you sees it, and the way your dog sees it. But we're all seeing the same thing, and not one of us is seeing it correctly because no one has perfect vision.